This is Brick Recap of a tiptoeing killer in a gown who comes back from the dead to take revenge and butcher this franchise. And now, we'll run into our high school psycho.
No! God, please, no!
Somewhere in Need for Speed Nowhere, Scott and Madison visit Stumacher's house as a tourist attraction. He's psyched, she needs to piss. So they go inside to admire the iconic murder site. And of course they take selfies where the bodies were found. Don't be shy, just rub one out. But when Madison is left alone, she's suddenly attacked by Ghostface. Luckily, after intervention from the male specimen, it turns out there's just a robot inside. What a perfect metaphor for this movie. Later on, the blonde specimen takes a call from an unknown caller who describes how he'll cut her up. So she hangs up and checks on the robot again, when suddenly she's confronted by another bedsheet man. Who could it be?
It's me.
I thought we'd never find out! Then they notice the robot starts to wiggle its ass, and this time it's the real ghost man, who stabs the dude in the chest and brain. And after a game of tag and some ceiling gymnastics, Madison gets impaled straight on the bastard's sting. Story of my life. I wish. So the murderous asshole sets the whole cottage on fire and just leaves the shot. Meanwhile, not in Woodsboro, Ben sneaks through Tatum's window, claiming he was watching Stab on TV and thought of her. Watching you, I'm pretty sure I played as you in Tekken. But just as they're about to offend Jesus with some premarital stabbing, Blondie's mother suddenly barges in and tells the little to beat it. Where do I know this lady from? And the next day she heads to the coffee shop she runs, where some guy named Carl picks up his coffee looking like he's attending his own funeral. You misspelled my name, you bitch. Then Sydney discusses the struggles of raising a kid with her neighbor Jessica. I'm sure it's fascinating, but first, please stab me to death. Luckily, Ghostface calls her later, and by this point she handles his calls like customer service. But when he shows his deep-fried face, it's actually her friend from the first film. Oh my god! Shaggy's alive? Who claims Sydney has a lovely daughter and he's currently outside her school. So mom immediately reports it to the cops. Specifically one copper, the one she bones. And they both race to save their daughter, who's currently practicing face planting and then gets hit by a flying hoo-ha. To which Mr. Spielberg says he expected a little more from Sidney Prescott's loins. I expected a little more from Henry Cavill from Wish. And when Tatum is all alone, the dude operating the crane suddenly goes silent and somebody else takes over the set, turning Blondie into a wrecking ball. I think I know this DJ. And Ghostman himself shows up on stage to slice up Supergirl until her guts spill out. And when Sydney arrives, she takes a few shots with her BB gun, but the killer flees, leaving Tatum safe and sound. Phew, for a moment I thought we wouldn't get to so they head home, which is currently being secured by our finest. But Bedsheet Man still manages to hide in the ceiling no problem. Great job, guys! Time for a donut! Sneaking right past Sydney and threatening Tatum with a cut. So Mark boots the asshole in the belly button. But after a brief struggle, he tumbles down the stairs like a sack of shit. That was close. His character almost mattered. So the girls hide in an anti-Ghostface bunker, but Sid insists on going back for her loser. And they both crawl through the secret passage hidden inside the walls. If they end up in Hogwarts, there's still hope for this movie. But Ghost Guy suddenly bangs on the wall, pinpointing Tatum by her scream. He would never find me. I'd only myself and carry the shame to my grave like a man. And the carpenter starts stabbing like a crazed murderer. So Sid bends his wrath, depriving him of manhood. But the asshole of course reaches for a obligatory in every household poker and wounds Sydney in the arm. Ouch! But the babes still manage to make it outside, where Mark tackles the priest and they start fighting on the lawn just like my old man and the mailman. He didn't take alimony requests lightly until Ghost Guy suddenly gets run over and dies, and the driver is Gail Weathers herself. So after the traditional squeezing of saggy nips, they unmask the killer, and it's Carl from the coffee shop. Oh, doesn't ring a bell. Who apparently was a student at Charles Xavier's Institute for Gifted Mutants. I mean, a mental patient and a triple murderer. So Gail insists they have to dig deeper into the case before they die of old age. But Sid taps out, claiming she has to take care of her family, when suddenly Stu calls. And I don't know if you remember, but he's supposed to be not alive, threatening them with phrases like, "Listen up, sluts! I'm gonna get you and you'll see I'm not a fake." Why did he call them from an ironing board? And because of that, Sid suddenly and also unexpectedly changes her mind. So the next day they visit Charles Xavier's Institute for the Mentally Ill, where they check out Kyle's room, the guy we know nothing about and don't care to, learning from the janitor that a guy named Stu, who suffered from amnesia, had been living in the next room since the 90s and was released 2 weeks ago. And at 120 years old, he figured out iPhones and video calls that fast? Meanwhile, Tatum refuses to be useless and makes me a sandwich, and also later insists on helping Gail's sidekicks catch the killer, coming up with a plan to expose her friends and her boyfriend. Oh, loyalty! Nice. And when they sneak out of the house, Mark hears some unauthorized intercourse in the garage, so he goes in, only for Ghostface to wrap him up like leftovers and stab him until achieving death. But the kind you can walk off later. While Tatum shows up at her friend's restaurant with Chad and Mindy, where after a thorough analysis and considering every possible scenario, they come to the conclusion that everyone is a suspect. Well, that narrows it down. But first, they watch Sydney's first ever interview with Gail, which makes Puzzle Face call, bragging that he found Tatum in a restaurant and is going to give her an ouchie. So Sydney runs to a car but can't open it. Aw, isn't she cute? So she floors it on foot, while her daughter is getting ready to head over, but accidentally discovers that her boyfriend was creating the fake stew. And before Final Fantasy can explain, he's knocked out with a laptop. He was way tougher in Tekken. But Tatum is immediately confronted by Killer Gown, so she runs to the city with her legs and arms. And when they play hide and seek, suddenly Ben shows up, promising he's not the killer, before he takes a stab in the arm and another 600 in the gut. But can I honestly testify he convinced me? No. So Tatum shoves the bastard, and after another cardio session checks in at her mother's coffee shop. While at McDonald's, Chloe is being attacked by another asshole. So Chad and Mindy try to help out, but they land on the floor all cut up. I know they're siblings, but they should make out before they kick the buckets, right? After that, Lucas turns up, Chloe's boyfriend, who confidently claims he's got this, and a minute later comes back all covered in blood. How did it go? So Ghost Guy arranges a fatal hit and run between Chloe and a bunch of bottles, and impales Lucas on the bar top, admiring the mix of beer and blood pouring out of him. Hey, I asked for no syrup. Meanwhile, Sydney, watching the surveillance feed on her phone, instructs her daughter where's the gun and encourages her to commit murder. Nice. So Blondie blasts the bastard through the wall, but of course skips the headshot. Ugh, does she even know what franchise she's in? So the douchebag gets resurrected, throwing sweet cheeks around the room until another wanker shows up and they kidnap her. So Sid, as always, arrives right on time to be too late, learning that her daughter is being held at home. Oh, so she's safe? So Sydney bolts to the White House, where she watches Stu, Billy Loomis's mother, her brother Roman, and Dewey on TV, all connected by two things. They're dead, and they're all exhausting as f. Then Sid finds her offspring on the patio tied up just like in the original, and the killer number one turns out to be the janitor, while his accomplice is none other than yo mama! Nah, that would be still slightly interesting. It's Sydney's neighbor Jessica, blech. But first, Marco explains he used to work at Google and created Stu with AI because in reality Shaggy is still dead. And where exactly did you get high quality footage of Stu to train the algorithm, pretty boy? Then Jessica takes the microphone, claiming she was a huge fan of Sydney because thanks to her she ended her toxic marriage. Oh, congrats! By killing her husband. Oh, congrats! But she was terribly disappointed by her idol due to Sydney not showing up in New York during the Ghostface's murder spree in the previous movie. It's not her fault they were too cheap to bring her back, which messed up the blonde neighbor so badly she had to check in the nearest cuckoo's nest where she met this guy. And then she moved next door to Sydney. All that because Sydney was protecting her family instead of getting caught up on the other side of America? Cool! And now she's going to kill her idol in front of Tatum, so the trauma turns her into Sydney 2.0. But meanwhile, the still slightly alive Mark loosens the bindings, and Tatum suddenly blasts Jessica with her head, almost sending her out of the country. Weird her melon didn't explode. While Sid shoots the janitor in his stupid face. Moving on to garage wrestling with her neighbor and keeps shooting her alongside her daughter until there's nothing left. She's gonna grow up just fine. After which Sydney tells the little one she named her after her best friend from the original, who was brave, strong and fierce. Really? I can only recall her Nips of Steel. My honest rating of this movie is 4 out of 10. Write something in Spanish in the comments so I can ignore it, and see you soon, losers!